Have a nice day. Today we have to discuss the very special topic. This is regarding the Pfmea. So we are planning to discuss the Pfmea, IAG, VDA, FMEA methodology. This is, the new version of FMEA. But I know that a lot of company, that of industry, they are using at the moment their traditional FMEA, but this is some different FMEA approaches there. Therefore, I think this is this will be very important for every industry because even it is they are using currently FMEA, but I know it is most of industry they are using traditional one. But however, that the FMEA approach is very important for the industry, especially automobile industry and other manufacturing industry. Not only other every industry is also important because you know that the DFMEA, PFMEA, and system FMEA and the service FMEA like that. Several FMEAs are there, but and machine FMEA also there. But important thing is that you have to absorb this particular knowledge. If you don't have this knowledge, actually, you are not a successful person in the manufacturing industry, especially because these things are very important. While you are preparing your control plan, you have to do first your the FMEA activities. Then you can introduce the control your each of the process. So I'm MG Ekanayaka, Problem Solving Institute in Sri Lanka. You know, AIAG means the Automobile Industry Action Group. Other one is the VDA, means the German Association of the Automotive Industry. Those two companies together, organization together, introduce this new version. So we will go to next step and we will try to understand it and try to apply this version. I know that if someone is using traditional version now, they are going to change, revise that version to new version. Therefore, this is very important. Okay. Under this training agenda, actually, I want to tell about this. It's a very long training program. Therefore, I have divided to 4 training programs because that is why you can be able to easily understand this one. And also, I expect that to introduce, relevant the Excel sheets in future because you have to prepare the step-by-step Excel sheets. So while you are doing this version, because you cannot directly prepare that, the FMEA table, before that you have to do a lot of things. The training agenda is this whole program training agenda I'm going to present here. And the planning and preparation first. Planning and preparation work should be there. And next one is the structure analysis. So under the structure analysis, you have to do a lot of things. So, but these things were not in the previous traditional version. And the function analysis, this one, then the failure analysis, then the risk analysis. Risk analysis, you know that the as previously, previous version, severity, occurrence, and detection, and also, but here a special thing introduced that the action priority. Not talking about the RPN, risk priority number. Here we are calling that action priority. So next one is the optimization work, and finally the result documentation. These are the 7 steps we have to follow under this new version. Okay. So what is the PFMEA? PFMEA, the real PFMEA stand for the process failure mode and effect analysis, but it is very clearly defined here. A systematic structured approach to identify potential failure modes in manufacturing process. Especially we are mentioned here manufacturing process. These are basically used the manufacturing process understand their effect and causes. The effect, what is the effect? What is the failure mode effect? And what is the cause of that? And evaluate risk, then evaluate the risk level using severity, occurrence, detection rating, and define action to reduce the risk. So based on that, optimization means define actions. Under that, we are define action to reduce the risk before defects reach to the customer. All are proactive approach. So very important proactive approach, because we don't want to separately introduce even a ISO or any standard. We don't want to introduce the preventive actions. So this is the real preventive actions we are taking under the FMEA discussions. Okay, the first one. The first one is regarding that identification of risk. Identification of risk. So this is detect potential process failures before production. So now I know that so many industry, they are doing production now, but now they are going to introduce the FMEA. But it is not a problem. But anyway, that the real thing, while you introduce a new product to your process, you have to do the FMEA activities before you start your production. Then you can prepare the control plan earlier. And then prioritize the action. Prioritize the action. Focus resources on the highest impact risk using action priority. I told about that here, not talking about the RPN, risk priority number, here focusing about the action priority, right? Then the drive improvement. So that one is the implement prevention and detection control systematically. All right, this is the prevention and detection. The detection, we have to, in advance, we have to detect the failure mode, and we are taking the preventive action earlier. Okay, we go to next part. This is regarding the AIAG VDA was traditional FMEA. This is, I'm going to talk about that because some industries now using traditional version. So this is the aspect is explained here, and then traditional version AIAG 4th edition explain about the traditional version. AIG VDA version 2019 introduced this version. We will show that approach. The approach is, the traditional version approach is form-based analysis, all right? But the AIG VDA version, new version approach is 7-step structured method. I will explain later that 7-step is what. So this is 7-step structured method is used for the new version. And next one is risk priority. Risk priority calculated by RPN. I explained it before. Severity, occurrence, and detection. Based on that multiplication, these three factors is called RPN. But when it comes to new version, it is explained about that it is explained that action priority, high, medium, low action, which is explained about that new version. And severity focus, severity equal to weight to severity, occurrence and detection. But severity drives priority. This is the AIG VDA version. And the process structure, linear worksheet. This is a linear worksheet. But the new version is a structure and function trees. That's why I'm telling that the new version, while you are doing new version, you cannot directly prepare the FMEA table. FMEA chart or a spreadsheet, you cannot directly prepare. You have to do a lot of activities before that. Therefore, this is important. The failure concept, individual failure modes. This is the previous version, but failure chain, failure mode, failure effect, failure cause. This is the approach. So the new version. The documentation single worksheet. We can directly prepare the FMEA table. But when it comes to new version, structured with traceability. So this is one of the important thing. Okay, next part is regarding the applicability. Primarily North America, it was applicable, but now global automotive standard following the new version. So this is really FMEA approach in AIAG VDA approach. So you have to understand it very clearly. Okay, the 7 step of PFMEA process. This is 7 step of PFMEA process in AIAG VDA version. So this is first one is the planning. Planning works you have to do. Then one is a structure analysis. Structure analysis part you have to do some works. So you should have a spreadsheet for that. Next one is the function analysis. So that one also you have to do a lot of activities under the Excel spreadsheet. So we have to prepare it. Then failures. We have to find the failure modes. Then next is the risk analysis. Then optimization. Optimization, I explained that. So if you identify that particular risk, there should be a particular cause, a particular effect. Based on that, you have to take the action to minimize the risk. And finally, documentation part. This is what the AIAG VDA approach. So this one is the 7-step approach, right? So those 7 steps, I am going to explain one by one, okay? And then is the AIAG VDA methodologies replace the traditional form driven approach with structured analytical framework that ensure thoroughness of and consistency across the global automotive supply chain. So this is what the new version approach. Okay, step 1, planning and preparation work. So planning and preparation works, basically, you have to get idea about that. Define the scope. You have to define your scope first. So which area you are going to introduce the FMEA. So this is your scope very clearly you should be defined. What is your boundary of this FMEA? Then team, you have to appoint the team. And then timeline you should prepare for the FMEA because you have to do 7-step approach. So those 7-step approach, you should have proper guideline and proper timeline. Otherwise, you cannot complete within the planning period of time. Okay. This is the next part. Next part is also very critical part. This is a planning with the 5T method. Intent, first one. Intent. What does intent mean? Define PFMEA scope. I told it. And boundaries. Okay? An objective. Why you are going to make FMEA? You should have proper objectives to make FMEA. Then what processes are included? Excluded process, what? Included process, what? You have to clearly define it. Okay, then timing. Timing is very important. Timing is very important. Establish project timeline with milestones. That project, if you going to start your project, you should have project mandate first you have to prepare. Project charter you have to prepare. Then you have to prepare the timeline. Timeline is very important. And you have to you have to set their key milestone aligned to the product development phases. You should have proper timeline. And team, assemble cross-functional team. Everywhere I am talking about the cross-functional team, CFT. This is a very important part in your Pfmea preparation process. Process what? And quality, production, maintenance engineers, and everybody. You have to collectively have to prepare this PFMEA. Otherwise, that the quality department or quality manager alongly, they cannot prepare PFMEA, right? This is a teamwork effort that should be understand everyone, right? Then the task. Assign responsibility. You have CFT, cross-functional team. You have to give the responsibility each of the person. And then deliverables you have to define. And review the checkpoints for each team members, right? Then tool. What are the tools we are going to use? Select PFME softwares, template, right? If you are going to use the PFME softwares, you can use it. And template also otherwise you have to prepare the template. As I explained that you can prepare the Excel templates if you don't have the particular softwares. I think you don't want to spend so much of money for the buying softwares. You can prepare by yourself these Excel templates and define rating scales, right? Then reference documents. Those are tools you are going to use the preparation of PFME. Okay, scope definition and key inputs. Defining scope. Scope, how you define your scope. This is a very important part. The first one is identify the product and process under analysis. So where you going to, for which product you are going to introduce and for where the process you are going to introduce this FME. And then set clear boundaries. That means you have to clearly define your scope. And define customer, end user, next operation, and OEM, right? Original equipment manufacturer. But all these should be very clearly you have to identify. And then document assumption and constraints you have to identify. Reference applicable standard. These are very important part. Okay, the next one is the key inputs required. Key inputs required. Process flow diagram. If you don't have process flow diagram, you cannot introduce the PFME. Your process you should be clearly defined in advance. All right. Engineering drawings and specifications. While I am discussing the APQP program, Advanced Product Quality Planning program, I explain clearly what is the engineering drawing and specification. Those are very important because we have to do DFMEA, PFMEA, those activities. Then lesson learned from the similar process. You should have a lot of lesson learned, similar process. You can use those things while preparation of this PFMEA. And then customer requirements. Everything we are doing in your organization, basically targeting with the customer requirement and special characteristic of products. All right, those because otherwise we don't want to prepare those documents. The next one is the historical warranty and quality data. So those information you can use as the input for the preparation of PFME. Okay. Okay, then the next one is the step 2 is the structure analysis. Structure analysis. This is one of the very important step in the AIAG VDA PFMEA version. Break down the process into steps, interfaces, and work elements. This is a very important. We are talking about not the generally process. You have to, each and every step of the process, you have to clearly define. Then you want to go to work elements, individual activities of your process. And then you have to find each and every individual elements wise your failure mode. This is very specific approach, because there is not any missing failure mode after do this new version of Pfmea. Process structure breakdown. How to process structure is breakdown. Organize the manufacturing system into hierarchy. Process item. Process item. What are the items there? What is the process steps there? What are the work elements? Work element we can divide according to the 4M. Man, machine, method, material. Based on that, we are doing the work elements we are dividing. The first one is the process item. Process item, higher level first. That one is the overall assembly or manufacturing process being analyzed. This is the overall aspect. All right. This is a high level approach. Right. Then process step. Then we focus to elements. Right. Elements. High level approaches should be there, because we should know that high level understanding about your process. Then you have to go to the work element level, right? Individual operation within the process. For example, welding, pressing, and those process. Like that, in your manufacturing process, you can define your elementary processes, activities, and then work element. So what are the works are doing each and elementary operations? Man work what? Machine work what? Material what? Right? And method. Those are the elementary level approach. You are doing the preparation of structure analysis. Right? I think you have enough understand. Okay. Poem element. I explain it. Poem is what? And the man, under the man, operator skills, trainings, ergonomics, and the human factors, and those things, basically we can consider as the man factor. But when it comes to machine factor, equipment, tooling, fixtures, maintenance condition, those things. Material, raw materials, components, consumables, specifications, those are. Method, work instruction, parameters, and those things, environmental factors, and everything you can consider as the method of this process. Okay, this is the first lesson. So you might understand, the full process about under the first video program, and I will do the next program for your benefits later. But the first understanding, planning part, and also the structure analysis part, you should clearly understand, because this is the requirement under this particular part. So that if Pfmea training part 2, I will I will introduce to you that in later video. But you expecting that the full the 4 video programs you have to follow this, getting fully understanding about the new version. Thank you very much about my first lesson of Pfmea. Bye bye.